Hello and welcome back, friends. It's a crisp, cold morning here in the south of Portugal. I tell you, man, the south of Portugal is strange. In the daytime, it's too hot to wear a winter coat, too hot to wear a light jacket. You know, I was seriously considering putting on shorts yesterday. But at night, when that sun is down, when the big blazing ball of fire cannot be seen, man, I just been in bed for like an hour after finishing Donna's birthday stream, and I'm icicles. All my fingers are icicles. I'm fully clothed, with socks on, with a hoodie on, with a big winter coat on, a duvet, a bear blanket, a dog, which is like my furry hot water bottle, and I just couldn't. It was a joke. I just had to get up and put on this gas fire. And I'm not going to put on the gas fire and go to bed. You know, that's a really bad idea. We would all burn down. So I just had to get up. I think I'm going to have some early morning meat. We've got some spicy sausage and a hot cup of coffee. So I thought, to be safe while we eat and while we sit next to this gas fire, man, I think the sun's about to come up soon, though. That's going to make all the difference. That's going to warm us right through to the bone. Right through to the bone. But yesterday, before I remembered that it was Donna's 75th birthday. If you haven't seen our special on Donna's 75th birthday, you can check that out on our channel page. The plan was to have a look at Sigfredo Garcia's attorney, Saam Zangeneh, or as I like to call him, Mr. Hand Grenade, the hand grenade of truth. Have a look at his closing argument, because to this day, after following this case for years, way back in 2019 is when I picked it up. A little bit before, but you know, I really got into it at the first Katie and Sigfredo trial back in 2019. It's been 6 fucking years, right? I've been through the case many times, the whole thing, many times. Listening, learning, piecing together bits of information, and I'm still not 100% clear on what Sigfredo Garcia's defense was supposed to be. You know, and I kind of like Mr. Hand Grenade. I like him a damn sight more than I like Daniel Rashbaum. I actually think, given Charlie Adelson's case, that Sam would have done a better job over Rashbaum. He was much more likable. And yeah, he comes off as a little bit sleazy at times, and he doesn't really seem that competent overall. You can tell that George is looking at him like going, okay, what is this? Where did we find this guy? Did we just get this bozo off the street? The judge gets pretty fucking impatient with him. But with all of those flaws, he maintains some genuineness. So yeah, I thought we'd have a look at his closing argument together, and try and piece together what his defense was. I've got a little notebook here. I'm going to be taking some notes, and by the end of the time of his closing argument, which isn't very long, I think it's about 55 minutes, we should be able to have a good idea about what Sigfredo's defense was, what he might be able to have done on appeal. I say with everyone here, but of course we are operating at the worst possible time of the day for True Crime Metrix Live. The Eastern Seaboard are all still asleep, and the Pacific Coast are just going to bed, you know. Maybe, what time is it in Sydney? Okay, so it's 7 p.m. in Sydney. Okay, so that's good. That's pretty good time. So welcome, Sydney, and welcome, Bangladesh. Maybe our golden Bangladeshi hour. Oh, hey, look, Patricia Burns. Good morning, Patricia. I hope you're warmer than I am. That's why I'm here, Patricia. I had to get up. I was so damn cold. Maria Gabriel, from all the way from Mountain Time, still in the shadow of the Rockies. Deb H. Look at that fabulous member star next to your name, Deb H. Where are you, Deb H? What time zone are you in? We know where Patricia is. We know where Maria is. Where is Deb H? Oh, you just come from the Donna's birthday? Yeah, we just finished that like 2 hours ago. And we're back. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm wide awake. I had about 14 cups of coffee last night for Donna's birthday special, and I'm having one now. Okay, let's get started, guys. Let's roll this puppy. I'm going to roll right in with this puppy.
Ready, be seated, please. Mr.Zangenheh, you can proceed.
Thank you, Judge. Your Honor, Mr. Buck, Mr. Cos, Ms. Kaplan, Ms. Norris, ladies and gentlemen of the jury.
I really like taking note of the way different attorneys handle that, kind of, what would you call it, sort of introduction to the podium. I don't know. Your Honor, Ms. Kawas, Mr. DeCos, Ms. Kappelman, Miss, what was her name? It's not Sarah Dugan, it's... I just want to see it again. I like the way he did it. I wonder if I were an attorney, how would I handle that part? Because I think it really does set the scene, you know. And I like what he did there, I gotta say.
Ready, be seated, please. Mr.Zangenheh, you can proceed.
Thank you, Judge. Your Honor, Mr. Buck, Mr. Cos, Ms. Kaplan, Ms.
Norris.
ladies and gentlemen of the jury. For the last 3 weeks, the government has been selling you their story, okay? And we're gonna...
So it was a 3-week trial. That's pretty long. I mean, it was a double trial, so yeah, makes sense.
Call this story the Sigfredo Garcia house, okay? Not to be confused with the Donna Adelson house, the Charlie Adelson house, the Harvey Adelson house. It's the Sigfredo Garcia house, and they want you to buy what they've been selling.
Notice he didn't say the Catherine Magbanawar house. You know, Saam Zangeneh was under strict instructions from Sigfredo Garcia to say, you're not going to say one thing against my woman, okay? And I believe that, yeah.
My job is to be the inspector of this house. My job is to point out things that they...
I think this is a little patronizing, right? Patronizing, whatever. You know, the jury get it, man. There's the Sigfredo Garcia house. We're not going to confuse it with the Donna Adelson house, the Harvey Adelson house, the Charlie Adelson house, the Wendy Adelson house. And my job is to be the inspector of this house. They're not 4 years old. They get it.
They don't want you to see. We're going to talk about the problems with this house. We're going to talk about the problems with the foundation of the Sigfredo Garcia house. We're going to talk about problems with the wiring in this house. We're going to talk about problems with the plumbing and with the roof of this house.
You know, this is another thing I think is always interesting to see, but ultimately a weak point. When you can see an attorney doing their thing, and like this little analogy that he's doing, this is such the kind of thing that is presented in law school, right? Christopher DeCoste did one the other day, and if you can see an attorney doing something that they picked up in law school in real life, I think it weakens the case. You know, it's much better to, you know, leave all that behind you, come up with your own style. And this house analogy, it's no good. He should never use that again. No attorney should use that ever.
Now,
podium approach. Thank you, Patricia Burns. That I'm happy with that. Podium approach. Yeah. It's important, I think. It really, you know, and ultimately the final acknowledgement is, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. That's when you know, it's much better than coming up and saying, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, may it please the court. That's very cursory, very brief. I like the one where he goes, Your Honor, Miss Gawas, Mr. DeCose, Miss Kappelman, Miss Norris, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Each attorney does it different, though, and I quite liked it.
Foundation of the government's case, unequivocally, without a shadow of a doubt, is Louis Rivera. How do I know this? Because the government said it in their own closing, that he is the linchpin of their case. He is, and the definition of linchpin is one that serves to hold together parts or elements that exist or function as a unit. He's the only person that...
Yeah, we understand linchpin.
tells you what he believes happened that day. The only one. So, who is Louis Rivera? Let's talk about who he is. Louis Rivera, and the government tries to downplay this, but it's important. It's important to know who you're listening to. It's important to know who's on that stand, and who is he? He's the head of a criminal organization, one that he got indicted for racketeering. He's been a crown of the Latin Kings, the first crown, for almost 15 years. Why does that matter? Because he is a person that has criminal connections in his own criminal organization. He told you that. He got up there and he goes, I have 100 people just in the North Miami tribe of the Latin Kings. 100 people. And that's a small tribe.
Don't be fooled, Patricia Burns. That tie is probably $140. One thing, and I've said this before about Mr. Hand Grenade, is that I'm not so comfortable with an attorney that clearly likes tailor-fitted, expensive suits. If that's their main focus, that's time they're not spending in the law library. This guy, if you look at his Instagram. Okay, the dog just threw up on the bed. That's nice. Yeah, can you just eat that up, please? We'll change the sheets later. Okay, what was I saying? Such is the nature of life. You never know when your animal might throw up on the bed. Well, at least I'm not in it. Yeah, no, his Instagram, full of flashy pictures, expensive sunglasses, expensive suits, flashy cars. In fact, I'll see if I can bring up a picture from his Instagram in a second.
In a nationwide organization that is peppered throughout the state of Florida. Well, why does that matter? Well, if you recall, during my cross-examination, when his phone, Louis Rivera's phone, was intercepted.
Good point, Deb H. He must have dressed himself. I don't think a woman would have dressed him in those colours, knowing trial is broadcast by cameras. Right, because his suit, the pattern on his suit, almost looks like those fuzzy lines you get on a bad signal TV, right? Like strobing or something. Yeah, not good. In
his federal RICO case, in a 1-month period, he solicited the assistance of Latin Kings to do 3 violent criminal acts. 3 in 30 days. Now, how do we know Sigfredo Garcia wasn't someone that he listened? Well, we know this. We know that Louis Rivera was indicted. We know that he pled guilty to a federal indictment, and that we know that when the arrest happened in this case, he was in prison. He was in federal prison. Was there any evidence to suggest that Sigfredo Garcia was in federal prison? Quite the contrary. Sigfredo Garcia was working at the finance place when federal agents went to approach him. So what does this mean? It's not on that indictment. He's not part of Louis Rivera's criminal network. Because during the 30 days, the federal government was listening to every phone call and every text message that Luis Rivera said. There was not one that implicated Sigfredo Garcia, because if there was, a reasonable person would assume that he would have been on that RICO statute, and he wasn't. And what does it also show? That he has a network of people that he can talk to, and by talk to, I mean discuss criminal acts, because that's what they do. This is not a charitable organization. This is a violent gang. A violent gang that carries out violent crimes. You know, listen, I asked him, I go, so you're self-described Jack Boy. Remember when he said that? What does that mean? He goes and he robs people. And who does he rob? He robs drug dealers, probably innocent people too, regular people. I don't think he differentiates. And what's his take on a regular robbery? What did he say? Between $10,000 and $20,000. And why is this important? Because when you go rob somebody, you don't get paid up front for the robbery, right? You get the spoils of the robbery. That's what you get. Luis Rivera had indicated that he makes $10,000 to $20,000 after every robbery. Luis Rivera told you that he is no longer associated with the Latin Kings, right? Then he told you that he has fear that there's going to be retribution against him by the Latin Kings, right? And this fear was so deep-rooted that he got up there and he says, man, I'm in protective custody. They're going to kill me. Well, if you recall, we introduced a letter that he sent to Ms. Kaplan. And the date of this letter is November 3rd, 2016. A hop, skip, and a jump away from when he started cooperating and took his plea deal when it became public in mid-October. And after 2 weeks in isolation, because they put him in isolation to protect him, what does he tell them? He wants out. He wants out of isolation. What's really important is I want you to read the last line. He goes, it is ridiculous that I am in confinement only because, what's the last 2 words? The last 3 words. I helped you. Not that I told the truth, but that he helped them. Because that's exactly what he did. And they don't want you to think that. They want you to think that he came forward and told you 100% what took place. Now, he was arrested in May. He got appointed an attorney. The attorney gets the evidence. They go over the evidence with him. And unlike Ms. Kawas, who had to travel from Miami and see Miss Magbanoa, Chuck Collins and David Collins are locals. His local lawyers went to see him and they went over the evidence. The majority of the evidence that you see. And this happened before he met with the government. So if the government wants you to think that she didn't spoon feed him anything, well, she provided the evidence to his lawyer who went over it and said, Mr. Rivera, got a big problem here. They have you, just you, on your cell phone going up there in June. And they have you renting a room. They have you renting a Prius. And Mr. Rivera, you're a Latin king. And when it comes down to it, that's an aggravator for the death penalty, which they were seeking. So, you want me to cut a deal? Yeah. And listen, I do call it the deal of a lifetime. Because what did he have to do? I initially came and I told you it was 7 years. It's less. He has to do 19 years and he's doing 12 and a half in federal custody. Now, federal custody is different than state custody. It's a lot easier, a lot better.
Is it a lot easier? I don't think it's that much easier, man.
Luis Rivera, as the government indicated, you testified.
Okay, let's have a look at this. So, this is from Sam's, Mr. Hand Grenade's Instagram. Pimp lawyer. So, he's had this made up. He's selling a costume of himself. And the costume pack includes swagger, a guilty client, sword for client to fall on for equally guilty co-defendant baby mama. The whole fucking story about Adelson guilt, but hands tied to tell it. A hot wife, thirst traps, and saucy sidebars. Not included, ability to convince client to cooperate. Adult-size costume, one size fits most. Okay, so what? He's having a bit of fun here, or what? I mean, what is this? And isn't that, what do you call it? Betraying attorney-client privilege? What about this one? Now, this isn't... He's not at a wedding in this next photograph, guys. This is just his suit. Let's see if I can pull it up. This is just his normal suit. Going to lunch. What is... I mean, come on. Stop showing off. Anyway. Yeah, if you want to check out his Instagram, it's Legal Sicaro. Well, I'll just put the link in the chat. There you go. There's Sam's Instagram, Mr. Hand Grenade. Go and leave him a nice message from True Crime Metrix.
About 10 times. Recorded statements were made by Mr. Rivera. The government recorded it. Do we have any of those in evidence?
Oh wow! Look, yeah, a lot of people are like this. Deb says, I didn't see this. I started watching Adelson case with Charlie. I think maybe Katie's third. Don't remember, as Katie was at Charlie's too. Yeah, well, Katie's been on the stand 3 times. Once in 2019, once in a retrial in 2022, and then she was convicted, and then she was brought on as a witness while in prison for Charlie's trial. But yeah, if you haven't seen the 2019 trial, Deb, or the 2022, they're both excellent, just as good, and in some ways better than Charlie's trial.
October 4th statement. Are you guys going to be able to go back in the jury room?
Mr. Zangeneh, I think you know, as I've explained to the jury, those are hearsay statements and they're not admissible in evidence. That's not an appropriate argument to make. As I've explained to you, jury, if there's something inconsistent in those statements, that's fair game and they present it. But those statements, along with the police reports and every witness statement in this case, are hearsay statements, and they're not admissible in evidence. You may proceed.
It's not a good look when the judge has to step in and say, you know, correct your behavior in the closing argument. That's just not a good look, is it? And the judge gets pretty impatient with him. He shouts at him at one point. You know, really snaps.
He made 10 statements. 10 statements. My client was interviewed for 2 minutes. You heard that statement. They played that audio for you, right? You remember that? When they went to interview my client, you heard that one, right? They played it for you. They bought it out, they marked it as an exhibit, they pushed play, and lo and behold, exactly what was said. Luis Rivera's testimony is what you take it to be. There's also jury instructions that give you guidance on how to determine how to judge a witness.
How's the audio, Patricia? Is it pretty equal with the microphone and the video?
There's an enumerated list that you're going to get to go back into the room with you. It says weighing the evidence. Number 1, did the witness seem to have an opportunity to see and know the things about which he testified? Did the witness seem to have an accurate memory? Was he being honest and straightforward in answering our questions? Did he have an interest in how this case ended? Did his
Deb asks, cool, I will watch them maybe in prep for Donna's trial, as Katie will probably be there. Are either men, Sigfredo or Luis, going to testify against Donna? Certainly Luis Rivera will. I don't think Sigfredo will. Sigfredo hasn't said anything, and he's maintained a code of silence. He doesn't have a deal with the state. Luis Rivera has a deal with the state. He's required to testify in any matter related to this case, and he will, for sure. He's going to be on the stand, absolutely. And likely Katie will be as well, yes. In fact, certainly. I mean, we know that she was brought to Leon County last time. This thing recently where Donna Adelson said that 2 inmates that she's been spending time with also spent time with Katie, and that Katie made a statement to say, oh, Donna was just making all that up, but yeah, it'll be good. We did hear from Katie about what she thought of Donna's statements, but I don't so much like reading out Katie's correspondence. You know, I think Donna is aware that her correspondence may go public, and I think she's almost writing with that in mind. You know, she seems to be pushing her narrative, but Katie has a lot more to lose. So if I start reading out things she says, she might stop talking altogether, and you know, that's not good.
Testimony agree with the other
But, you know, I can tell you that she said it was a load of fucking bullshit. All this stuff what Donna said. What did she say? She said that 2 inmates came up to her and basically said that Katie had told them, yeah, see what I'm going to get that family. You see how long they get in jail. Yeah, if it wasn't for them, I'd be sitting pretty in Hawaii with an expensive drink and all this bullshit. You know, it's just totally made up, totally fabricated. Donna is clutching at straws, trying to pull the Jenga bricks out of the state's case, you know, so the tower crumbles.
Testimony and the evidence in the case. Has the witness been offered or received any money, preferred treatment, or benefit in order to get the witness to testify? And there are a few others, which include, is the witness a convicted felon? 5 felony convictions. And did the witness
I think he's got more than 5 felony convictions. What does Patricia say? Metrix. I was thinking about Donna misunderstanding laundering money. Why? Because she was washing it with dish soap. And wonder if she was told she may need a barrister and misunderstood and got her morning coffee makers, baristas, to come forward. Yeah. Well, yeah, I see what you're doing. I see what you're doing. Of course, they don't have barristers in the States. But, yeah, no. I wonder how Donna takes her coffee, how do you think Donna takes her coffee? Oh, maybe I should put up this little sign. Yeah. It is early, and I think we've got about 4 people in stream. But if anyone watching this later would like to buy us a coffee, you can go to buymeacoffee.com to support the channel /True Crime Metrics. Thank you so much, guys. Oh, and we hit our goal on the channel last night, folks. So starting this evening, we are going to be reviewing the recent case. The verdict was out yesterday. The guy got not guilty on all counts for stabbing his mother in the neck with a fucking 12-inch blade so badly that the knife just went straight through, came out the other side. The police and the paramedics that were the first responders reported that they could just see through the hole in her neck. Just see right through it, right? Fucking... Yeah, what's his name? Colin Griffith. He just got found not guilty of murdering his mother, and will be released if he's not already released. So everyone wants to have a look at that trial, and I do too. It's not very often that we see a not guilty verdict for a serious charge. I mean, I can't remember the last time. Casey Anthony comes to mind, obviously, but off the top of my head, it's difficult to think of another one right now. I'm sure there are, but it does not happen very often, so we'll be looking at that with a fine-tooth comb tonight.
At some other time, make a statement that's inconsistent with the testimony provided in court. Well, you heard what he provided in court, and you know there's about 9 other statements.
Hey, good morning, Harley D. Good to see you. By the way, I did see your message last night, Harley, about the link that you put onto Jeff's interview. Yeah? Let me just see if it's if I can see it right now. A link to a video you made with Judy. Let me just double check. I guess it's on our most recent Jeff video. I don't see it, Harley. I see your comment about Wendy doesn't drink alcohol. What a lying piece of shit Charlie is. Yeah, maybe just confirm. Or, you know, you can always send it to me on Discord. I'd love to see it.
Luis Rivera gives you a story which starts like this. On June 3rd, Sigfredo Garcia approaches him and says, "I'm doing a robbery, come with me." And he goes, "Okay, sure, let's go."
So just on the subject of what the hell Sigfredo Garcia's defense was, the big thing he seems to be doing is Luis Rivera is a really bad guy. He robs people. He comes away with 20, 30 grand of robbery, blah, 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 blah. But, you know, we have the video. You know, we have the ATM of Luis and Sigfredo in the car together. We have the independent testimony of Shadrick Nobles, who identified Sigfredo as being in Tallahassee. Of course, Luis Rivera's testimony, of course, Mr. Hand Grenade is saying that can't be trusted. It's not just the word of Luis Rivera that the state has built their case against your client, Mr. Hand Grenade. So you've got a lot of work to do.
And the track on that purported date, here we go, starts June 4th. Their cell tower records get at 1:30 in the morning in Miami. And then on his trip, 3:13 a.m. Okay? So somewhere in between, he starts heading north. Now, what did he tell you? He said, "Yo, listen, Sigfredo came to me and said, look, we got a robbery to do, let's go." So Luis Rivera wants you to believe that he went and purchased a gun from a black guy in the hood, okay? And then went and bought bullets. And then his testimony was, and then we dipped. Look at his phone records. Look at what it says. Do you think there's a gun store open at 2 in the morning? These are reasonable things. You have to say, that doesn't make sense.
Who said it was 2 in the morning? Did I miss something? I've never heard 2 in the morning.
He said, "Yo, listen, Sigfredo came to me and said, look, we got a robbery to do, let's go." So Luis Rivera wants you to believe that he went and purchased a gun from a black guy in the hood, okay? And then went and bought bullets. And then his testimony was, and then we dipped. Look at his phone records. Look at what it says. Do you think there's a gun store open at 2 in the morning? These are reasonable things. You have to say, that doesn't make sense. You know, listen, the whole buying a gun thing, we deem that to be 100% completely not believable. okay? This is a person that has extreme knowledge of how crimes work. He's part of a national-wide criminal syndicate. What does he have to do? Hey, bro, listen, I'm coming up to Tally. Get me a gun. Get me a tool. That's what they call it, a tool. Get me a tool. He's not going to ride with a gun from Miami all the way up to Tallahassee. He's a convicted felon. That's a crime. That's a major crime. So he wants you to swallow that, okay? And then he says, well, Sigfredo also bought a gun, which was never recovered. There's no evidence of it. But he says, you know, because he wants culpability to go both ways, Sigfredo bought a gun too. Okay, so what did you guys do? Well, we did coke, and we drank the whole way up. Now listen, at 3:13 a.m., say it's about a 7-hour drive, taking breaks from Miami to Tallahassee, give or take. How long is this drive? Let's just say he left 3 o'clock and he gets there at 12:30. It's a 9.5-hour drive. Sergeant Downing pulled him over, right?
He's got this. His tactics are like to put emphasis on the strangest things. Like he's leaning right into the jury across the podium. It's a 9.5-hour drive. Yeah, okay, we know. Yeah, long way. What, about 450 miles? So do the math. I mean, like, say average speed 50 miles an hour on a long drive, right? I mean, yeah, you go faster than that, but there's lots of points where you have to stop at lights. So average speed 50 miles an hour. In fact, that's probably pretty quick. So 450 in how many 50s is yeah, it's 9 hours. Okay, that's simple.
We know that for sure. There's a record of it. That record shows Luis Rivera was the driver of the...
So he's saying that there's a record of it, like there's not a record for when he put 2 bullets in the head of Professor Markel. It wasn't caught on film. It didn't happen.
Rental car. And Sergeant Dowling, when we asked him, was there anybody else? He's like, nah, that's what I checked when no one else is in there. Nobody else was in the car. Right? And what else did he say? He goes, well, you know, he'd been a trooper and doing other law enforcement for about 8 years before this. If what Luis Rivera was telling you was true, then Sigfredo Garcia must have consumed 3 to 4 grams of cocaine during this ride up. Now, sure, he doesn't have a glass table to do cocaine off of, so what does that mean? Probably took out his key, did key bumps. There'd be coke all over him. This would be a disastrous, probable cause to search the car, which he purported had guns in it. Does that make sense? Does the evidence suggest that? Trooper Downing, let me tell you, 9 o'clock in the morning, a guy that's been on cocaine all night, someone that's been trained as a police officer for 10 years, guess what he's going to do? Get out of the car. Right? Probably coke all over his face. You know why he didn't say that? A, he wasn't in the car, and B, it didn't happen. Are there records to show where Sigfredo Garcia was during this time? Magically, they're not. They're able to get everything they need, but on a trip that's material to their case, they don't have it. Just like when I asked the financial officer, I go, well, what about his bank records? Well, we had to search archives. We're not going to do that. God forbid. God forbid we make one other call and get information because it could hurt us. Luis Rivera, their linchpin, has married them to a story. This is the foundation of their case. So they're going to say, well, it's not just him. Shadrick Nobles comes forward. Now, Shadrick Nobles came in January of 2016, right? January of 2016, a year and a half later. They called him in because they think that he's part of the murder. What do they tell him? Well, tell us what happened. Well, do we know exactly what he said? They did say it was videotaped. What he testified to was that my client, after a whole day of consuming a toxic or maybe even a fatal amount of cocaine, wanted more cocaine. And he flags him down without knowing him in Tallahassee, when he's allegedly next to a gang member that has connections all over the state. Does that make sense? You know, in the world of improbable things to do, if you have Luis Rivera, somebody that wants to stay under the radar, allowing this to happen, doesn't make sense. You know what also doesn't make sense? Shadrick Nobles, by chance, magically, on the next trip, sees him on the road. Right? I mean, your antenna must have jumped up, going, wait a minute. Is that a coincidence? That's a
There is more to it than that, isn't there? You know, I don't know if I guess I believe that Luis Rivera had never been to Tallahassee before. Shadrick Nobles is from Tallahassee, but I think they would have exchanged numbers. If you come across a guy that's selling coke and you want to buy coke, you take his number just in case you're ever in Tallahassee again. I mean, I don't know. Or was he? No, I mean, yeah. It is a little sketchy. It is a little sketchy. Can we speculate? Sure. Do we know anything? Not really.
Crazy coincidence. Sergeant Nobles told the cops, yeah, you know, bought him a little coke. Did he get charged for that? No. Now, our position is, Sergeant Nobles probably didn't get him a little coke. He probably got Luis Rivera, through him or one of his associates, a lot of coke. Or bought a lot of coke, because that's what it was. You know, when you go up for a day trip, that's a drug deal. And that's what this was for Luis Rivera, a drug deal. Shadrick Nobles admitted it. Now, he changed the amounts, and he changed the intention of it, but doesn't that make more sense? That he's going up there for a drug deal? Right? Because if you're going to go, and remember, hold on, let's go back. Let's go back to what Luis Rivera said. Around Orlando, which let's say it's 8 o'clock in the morning, after about 5 hours, being on the road for at least 5 hours, his alleged best friend goes, oh, you know what? Just to let you know, it's not a robbery. We're going to kill somebody. Okay. The head of an organized crime unit, okay? A crime gang. What is he going to say? What's the first thing that he's going to say? Where's the money? You think he cares about who they're killing? He's going to say, where's the money? How much do we have now? I'm going to kill somebody for free. Right? Does he say that? Does he ask, where's the money? I mean, we've all seen movies, hitmen take half the money up front. But no money is given. Or more importantly, who's paying us? Who's paying us? Because if I'm going to go kill somebody, the person that's paying us knows who I am, they may need to be a loose end. Does he say any of these things? Because candidly, don't you think that's the first, these are the conversations that are going to be had on this monstrous trip? At least even from 8 a.m. till 12:30, right? Aren't they going to discuss where we're getting the money? Who's the person that knows about this? Who's paying us? Did he mention that at all?
Yeah, Patricia. Yeah, like he knows anything about where to. I totally believe that Luis Rivera can go to the hood, see a guy that he knows sells illegal guns, and say, "Listen, what do you got? Okay, you got a 38 short nose? I'll give you $150. Done, easy." I mean, you know, it's not. He actually starts comparing the hit to what happens in films. He says, that's not how it happens. You don't see that in the movies. It's one guy with a gun and a briefcase. Like he's just watched Leon the Professional, and that's the limit of his imagination. That's how an assassin works. It's crazy. Hey, Darklyn. All the way from Well, I don't know if it's Sydney, actually, but certainly Australia. Welcome, Darkland.
Wouldn't that be the first thing a criminal in a criminal organization would want to know? Not who we're killing, how am I getting paid? Right? Where's the money coming from? And then, if Sigfredo would have been like, I don't know, you think he would have done it? We'll get back to some more of this later. But this foundation of their case, their own linchpin, that's weak. And weak is an understatement. I don't think you can believe anything that he says out of his mouth. And if you do, go ahead. But remember what I am discussing with you to discuss back there. Because this matters. You know, just because there's a theory and there's evidence, there's common sense. Common sense has to fall in there somewhere. And we're only at June 4th. Okay? We're only at June 4th in a trip up. What Luis Rivera testified to was that they get there around 12:30, and then they went to bed. Right? They've been up all night, according to him, drugging and driving and drinking and God knows whatever else he was saying. June 4th. They stay in Tallahassee a night, June 5th. And then they head back down June 6th. And Luis Rivera claims that there's no records of where he stayed because they bribed some homeless person, which they clearly didn't do on July 17th when he rented a room under his name, and which clearly they didn't do, or Shedrick Nobles didn't do, on July 18th when he rented a room.
Poison tip umbrella.
There's holes and questions on this trip that have to be screaming, I don't know if I can take Rivera for anything that he says. And let me culminate Rivera by saying one thing. His purported best friend, he picked him out in a second, right? Oh, yeah, that's the guy that did it. He asked him a question about the Latin Kings. Oh, man, why you got to bring them into this? Do you think he's protected?
I think the jury are listening to this. After 3 weeks of testimony, right? They must be just like, what are you fucking wasting our time here for, man? I wish we could see the jury. I know that they have to protect the privacy of the jurors, but man, wouldn't it be so great just to look at 12 people slowly blinking with frustration, tight-mouthed, just like, finish your shit. Guilty.
Somebody? Maybe one of his Latin King brothers? Government said they cross-referenced Rivera's...
Look. He's trying to create, like, what do you call it? What's the opposite of doubt? Whatever.
Second, right? Oh, yeah, that's the guy that did it. He asked him a question about the
Well,
Latin
he should
Kings.
know.
Oh, man, why you got to bring them into this? Do you think he's protecting somebody?
Do you think he's protecting somebody? Do you think he's protecting Taco? Do you think he's protecting Toto?
Maybe one of his Latin King brothers?
Ooh.
Government said they cross-referenced Rivera's phone records with other Latin Kings. You don't think he called another Latin King from June to July? In October itself.
Okay. So here's another element that we can identify. He has to acknowledge that Luis went up with someone, right? Because there's a photograph of Luis in the car, and all right, maybe you can't exactly see Sigfredo Garcia's face in that picture. But he has to acknowledge that there was someone. So he wants it to be Luis Rivera went up to Tallahassee with another Latin king and cannot snitch on that Latin king because of the code. So he throws his best friend under a bus. Well, why not someone else throw under? If throwing under the bus is what he's doing, why doesn't he pick someone that he doesn't like, not someone who says that they were brothers? I mean, Sigfredo Garcia, why isn't he a Latin king? I mean, he's like an honorary king. He's like a Latin prince, right? Well, what's the deal? He's got a motorbike. He's a gang street thug. He robs people and beats people and all the rest of it, and, you know, does this assassination. I mean, why isn't he a Latin king?
There's 3 crimes that are caught on that wire that he confessed to, that he admitted to you. But that does not form the theory of the government's case. So Control, Alt, Delete. Don't think about it. Don't think about that, guys. Don't think about it. Because that could create questions they don't have answers to. Now,
you don't have answers. That could create questions that they can't answer. A bit like me with this case.
the government wants you to believe someone that's inherently unreliable, and that's Louis Freeh. And they said, yeah, he's a bad guy, but that's your bad guy.
Well, he is Latin. They're both Puerto Rican.
They're a bad guy. I know bad guy. I got pulled over. I got cut off today and going down.
I mean, his name is Sigfredo Garcia. I think it's pretty safe to say he's of Latin descent. Yeah.
Road today. I thought that person was a bad guy. Nah, that's a bad guy. That's the worst of the worst. You know, the government's theory is that they believe Louis Rivera when he said, my client's the shooter. Do you think he would have gotten the deal that he got if he admitted to being the shooter? What's a shorter distance when you pull up behind somebody in their driveway? The driver or the passenger when someone's parked in the driveway? The quickest person to get...
Wow. Listen to this, guys. What's the shorter difference when you pull up behind someone and you've got to get to the driver's door of the car in front of you? That's your case? 3 feet difference? Well, maybe 5, 6 feet? It's not much. It's not like an extra mile, you know? Sigfredo ran out of the passenger side because Louis was the driver, and the driver needs to be ready to drive off. Right? The getaway driver? You know, when a bank robbery happens and there's a guy waiting in the car, ready to go? The getaway driver? What's the shorter distance if you were parked behind someone? Maybe if they'd have backed in, Sigfredo could have been the shooter, because then he would have had to travel 3 feet less distance. Think about it, ladies and gentlemen of the jury.
Get there is who? Someone that just walks right out? Gangster style? Bang, bang?
All I know, Harley D, is Sigfredo's mother. Oh, actually, she's in the Dominican Republic. Santo Domingo. Yeah. Well, is he Cuban? I don't think he is Cuban. He's certainly Latin. I don't exactly know where he's from. I know his mother lives in Santo Domingo in Dominican Republic.
Someone that has to walk around the car all the way around. And it's so funny that that investigator Yao said gangster style, because who's shooting who? A gangster killed Dan Markel. Louis Rivera killed Dan Markel. And you know what? It's It's common sense. 2 and 2 has to equal 4. He's admitted to being involved in these types of actions. That's his indictment. Okay. So let's get...
Good morning, Keith. Thanks for hitting the like button, my friend. Yeah, please do remember, everybody, to click the like button. It really does help us out, especially at this early hour.
A little bit more common sense. Let's get to the numbers, okay? I'm going to give you $35,000. Supposedly, when Luis Rivera finds out that this is an actual murder, he even said, yeah, you know, people think I kill people. Wink, wink. So I'm going to go ahead and do this murder for 35 grand, right? Because I'm going to be the shooter. And then, I don't know if it's a coming to Jesus moment or a lie. He says, well, I guess I didn't feel like doing it because there's kids involved. You don't think the victims of his robberies have kids? You think he cares about kids?
I think he does care about kids, you know. I think Luis Rivera, despite his gang status and criminal behavior, violent behavior, you know, he was born into it. And that's the thing with a lot of gangs, organized crime. The reason that they can go undetected is because it's gang on gang. You know, I don't think he's going out jacking cars of civilians. He's robbing drug dealers. And that's just what he knows. His 2 uncles were Latin kings. He does seem to have a good heart. I mean, maybe that's just me.
If you do believe his testimony, if you do believe that he thought because this man, this innocent man, had 2 kids, that he pulled back from a murder just to re-engage it a month later. It's kind of shaky. It's kind of unreliable. And then here comes the best part. After refusing, allegedly, to do the murder, he claims that on the way up, on June 18th, or during the trip, of July 18th, that my client did it, and in addition to getting the money he was told he was going to get, got a bonus for being an Uber driver. That's a real expensive Uber ride. You got to think, if my client hired him, why would my client even go up there? Reasonable. Hey, listen, I want you to go take care of this thing. Here's money. Go. Why would you tag along? This is not a 2-man job. It's a 1-man job. You don't see movies where you have 2 hitmen go do something. It's 1 guy with a briefcase and gloves. That's what you see.
Yeah, in the movie. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen an attorney cite the fictional reality of cinema in defense of his clients. I mean, that's not what you see in the films. Obviously, that's not how it happens in real life. Because films are real life. What is he doing? You know you're in trouble if you have to come up with something like that. Fuck's sake.
You don't see a tag team hit squad. It's 1 man. Now, there's evidence that Luis Rivera admitted to. He's a drug dealer. There's evidence that Charlie Edison does not. Government's like, well, there's no phone records, so there's no way that they could know each other. Miami Beach, they both live. Luis Rivera lives in Miami Beach. Charlie Edison goes to Miami Beach. Luis Rivera sells drugs.
Yeah, along with 20 million other people. I just imagine Saam Zangeneh perusing over the discovery documents and going, aha, listen, there's evidence that Luis Rivera sold drugs, and there's also evidence that Charlie Adelson did drugs. So put them together and aha, we have a case. Man, yeah. Crazy.
I don't know if it's outside the realm of possibility. If one day when he's visiting Katie McBanwell, he would say, "Can you get me some coke or some weed?" Rivera gets called. Rivera comes by, and a deal struck.
The other thing is that it was always Charlie getting weed for Katie, right? There's all these calls on the wiretaps where he's like, "Oh, do you want me to leave some bonsai trees in the garage?" Like, all the time. And to the point where she's kind of not even interested. She's like, "Yeah, I could go without for a couple of days. You know, I don't really want to come all the way down."
That foundation's weak. It's beyond weak. It needs help. So let's go to the wiring. The electricity, the spark, or the motive in this case. Government wants you to believe that my client agreed with Miss McBanwell to go commit a murder. Okay, let's break this down, okay? Let's start off with the first thing that we've learned over and over in this case is that Sigfredo Garcia could not stand Charlie Adelson, right? I mean, not only has there been testimony about it, there are text messages. There's one where Charlie Adelson says he wants to take, on July 25th, 2014, Charlie says he wants to take me deep sea fishing. I'll agree with Ms. Calvin, that's a joke. You know why? That at first he wants to kill me. He wants to take me out in the middle of the ocean, knock you out, have the fishes take care of you. July 25th, 6 weeks before this purported June trip that my client went on, but there's no evidence of. So we have July 25th. Now remember, they broke up in 2013. She goes out with him New Year's Eve, going into 2014. Okay? We know that Charlie Adelson knows who my client is because there's a text message in late April, the one I just talked about. So what does that mean? He knows about my client. Luis Rivera, what did he say? I'm talking about that. I'm sorry. What did Luis Rivera say? There was a time in the summer before the trip that Sigfredo drove up to a restaurant where Katie and Charlie Adelson were, and he wanted to run him over. So, wants to kill him. Charlie Adelson agrees that he wants to kill him. And then on July 1st, on the wiretaps, you hear Charlie Adelson say, reminiscing about a time where he had jet skis and how, the guy with the 2 kids, my client, July 1st, angrily pulled his car behind Charlie Adelson and confronted Charlie Adelson. So, definitely no April 25th, definitely no July 1st, and there's so bright text messages.
Goddamn microphone button. Yeah, so now he's saying that... What is he saying? He's saying that it's impossible for Sigfredo to have done the hit because he hated Charlie and there's no way he would have done anything to help Charlie. But he must have been missing the other half of the trial against Catherine McBanwell because the whole case was that she was the silent middle woman between Charlie and Sigfredo and that Sigfredo didn't know. I mean, the jury that are deciding the verdict for both Katie and Sigfredo separately, but with the same evidence, having heard evidence for both defendants, have heard everything about the fact that Sigfredo didn't know who the hit was for because Katie was the middle woman. It's just... What? There really is no point to his closing argument. It does nothing.
Charlie Adelson, Catherine McManus on July 2nd, highlighting the July 1st incident. Okay. So, hates his guts in April, hates his guts in July, right? That's the evidence. It's uncontroverted. Even Miss McManus' good friend, the young lady that's in the picture with Lady Edelson, I forgot her name, but even her, when I asked her, how angry was he about this? She gave a scale of 10, 11, and then 12 when I asked. Okay? Hates his guts. This reverts back to my initial.
That's not even true. She said he tried to amp it up, like say, so now you're saying that on a scale of 1 to 10 that Sigfredo's anger was an 11 or a 12? And she goes, no, on a scale of 1 to 10 it would be 10 because there's nothing higher than 10.
Question about Luis Rivera, if asked, hey, you want to go do a job? If Catherine McManus, as she's dating a man that drives a Ferrari, flaunts his wealth, and his slick back hair for everyone to see, if you Google him, you see his face, you see his cars. If Catherine McManus came and said, listen, I got a job for you, it's $100 grand. Don't you think his first action's going to be from who? Who's paying me? Who's doing this? You heard Sigfredo's own temperament and his own words when the FBI went to talk to him. Pretty calm, collected, thought-out person. Where's this money coming from?
Sigfredo did actually handle that police interview quite well. I'll give him that.
They want you to believe that Katie either withheld this kind of information, the kind of information Sigfredo Garcia would spend the rest of his life or even death to commit an act not knowing information. And listen, this isn't, hey, honey, can you go down to the store and get me some milk? No questions asked. Yeah, sure, no problem. Can you pick up diapers? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, murder milk.
No problem. Can I borrow $100? Yeah, sure, no problem. You want to make $100 grand for killing someone you don't know? Huh? They don't want you to think about these pieces because what do? They cut Sigfredo out of the equation. Because we know for sure how he feels about Charlie Adelson. We know how the government feels about Charlie Adelson. And Wendy Adelson, and Donna Adelson spent the first 21 minutes of their opening statement talking about the Adelsons. Now, if Luis Rivera got the deal of a lifetime, and after a year or 6 months, they arrested Charlie, and he admitted it was just me and Luis. Yikes, right? What a pill that would be to swallow. But we don't know. Because the only people here, the only people that have been arrested, the only people in front of you, my client, Ms. McManus. They're painting a picture with missing pieces. I'm trying to open your eyes for you guys to discuss some of these missing pieces. That's all. That's all I can do. My job is to point out problems and ask you to talk about them. But don't you think the issue as to why Catherine McManus, they told you, she's barely making any money. I'm going to give you $100 grand, and then here's the $1 million question again. What money am I getting up front? How do I know I'm getting paid? Hold on, the guy, pardon my language, the guy that's banging you is going to give me $100 grand? How do I know? What kind of deposit am I going to hold up front? There's no testimony to any of this. I guess it was COD, cash on debt. That doesn't exist. The government made a big deal about this bump. We've all heard about it. Not the bumps that Luis Rivera was claiming my client took in the 6-hour car ride, but the telephone bump. And the telephone bump really lets you think about where the government's mindset is. Because who did they could get 10 wires. They can apply and get wires for anyone that they believe was involved in this case. They believe Charlie Adelson was involved. They got a wire intercept. They believe Catherine McBanna was involved. They got a wire intercept. They believe Sigfredo Garcia was involved. No wire intercept. Now, let me tell you why you should be thinking about this, because even according to the government, Luis Rivera, the person whose family's allegedly extorting him, is closest to who? Sigfredo Garcia, right? Wouldn't you want to hear what he did or didn't do as a result of who he called or didn't call? But they didn't even get an application. They didn't even get a wire intercept for Sigfredo Garcia. They didn't want to listen to his phone. They wanted to listen to hers. And wherever Charlie Adelson is, probably at home, watching live.
Yeah, I'll bet. No. Wendy Adelson advised her mom and dad and brother not to look at any of the media. Can you imagine this trial going on and, like, none of them are watching? There's no version of reality that makes sense. Charlie's at the go-kart track. Donna is looking after taking the boys to the swings. No. They're all sitting around the TV together, right? Probably with an attorney present as well. Hey, riding shotgun, how you doing? I couldn't sleep either. It was just too darn cold. I had to put the gas fire on, and I'm not going to go to sleep with the gas fire on, so we're streaming.
In the comfort of his home. They played a tape, a wire intercept call. I think it's called L or J. Where you can hear my client was angry.
Hey, look, Lori. Okay, Lori is saying good morning from work. Where are you, Lori? Are you in Bangladesh? Where is it work time right now? Well, I guess it could be the UK. It's the UK, right? You just got to work at the UK. Where are you? Where are you, Laurie?
He probably found out the night before that the love of his life had been talking to her ex. And he'd probably been out drinking, because it's 8 o'clock in the morning and his speech is a little slurred. And what's the first thing he says? They didn't play it in the clip. He goes, I'm not going to make this call. And then she gets on him and he says, I'll make it, but he never does.
Yeah, 303 in Chicago and Wichita too, right, Shotgun?
He never makes the call, and they claim that he made a call and hang up. That's not a call. There's no conversation there. Does he appear to have a real interest in who's purportedly extorting him? Because remember, it's him too. His name is allegedly on this piece of paper, which we've never seen. But they say his name is on it. And if he was a real gangster, the way that they're portraying him, a real murderer, and someone's extorting him, I would assume he'd make a lot of calls. I would assume he would make a lot of calls to a lot of kings. Yet, here we are, with 0 calls to listen to.
Is that what you think, Mr. Hand Grenade? That your assumptions mean dick in a court of law? Okay. I guess this guy's not got judge in his future occupation. Do you think Georgia Cappleman's going to become a judge? Like, how does that work? I mean, every judge has to be like a shit-hot lawyer, right? First. You can't just go straight to judge, can you? Does anyone know? It does make you wonder when you see these judges that look really young. Like the Honourable Lady Judge that sat on the Grant Armado case and on the Nicholas Cruz case. They're both very young.
Now let's talk about the plumbing. What stinks? Okay. Ms. Kappelman was kind enough to indicate to you guys during her closing that I did receive a check from Miss McManua. And she says, well, I don't represent Miss McManua. But guess who I represent? Her husband. I don't know what kind of shade that was to throw at me, or what kind of insinuation it is that they were trying to make, but look what they're doing. Attempting to make me appear to be improper.
Well, you're doing a pretty good job of that yourself, Sam. I mean, come on, you can't put it all on Georgia Kapelman. She's reviewing your courtroom manner.
Trying to shine a turd, pardon my language, and Luis Rivera, and then they're...
Luis Rivera is that turd. They're trying to shine a turd.
Trying to discredit me? Now, you gotta think to yourself, why would they do this? Well, I'll tell you. There's an innocent man that was murdered. A father of two. Law professor. Was killed in his driveway in cold blood. And at no point do I want you guys, with this analogy or anything I say, to minimize from what happened to Dan Markel. That happened. And Luis Rivera has admitted liability in this case. Now, let's talk about what stinks. Let's talk about his plea deal. 6.5 years is what he will have to serve in Florida State Prison. 6.5 years. Because he said that my client did a murder. And like I said before, he's the only one that says it. He's the only one that says it. He's the one that says that my client got out and ran around and shot him point blank. Well, what smells about the government's testimony with regards to that? Remember Inspector Yao was really tall. He was the ballistic expert, the gun guy. So before, when he had the 1 point...
He's not very good at remembering people's names either, is he? Remember the witness? Really tall? Gun guy?
of entry, 49 inches, he said someone between 5 feet and 6 feet tall could do the shooting. 2 weeks before trial, came up with a new theory. Came up with a bunch of things that he was...
Someone between 5 feet and 6 feet tall probably accounts for like 92% of all men in America, right?
Assuming to do what? Increase the height of the shooter. What? This is something you did a few weeks before trial? And what he did is he took a bunch of variables that don't exist. And he even admitted it. And what did the government say in their closing? Well, it was a tall guy. That's not what the evidence shows. The evidence shows it was someone with the 1 point of entry at 49 inches, someone between 5 and 6 feet tall. They say it's a taller person because Luis Rivera says it's a taller person. Because Luis Rivera received a 19-year prison sentence where he only has to serve 6.5 years for killing Dan Markel. Now, there are factors
Mute
that
button. I said,
the jury has to take into
oh, Edmonton, Alberta, you're working late. Late.
consideration
Me
when
too.
making a determination as to someone's involvement in a crime. I want to highlight a few things. The government says Sigfredo Garcia swapped cars. They say it like it's a fact. It's not. The evidence is he rented 2 cars. And the evidence shows that on June 4th, Luis Rivera was arrested in that car. That's what the evidence shows. The person from the rental car didn't remember there being a trade, just remembered a second transaction. Why is this important? Well, the government's like, well, he rented a car. It appears that my client was doing a lot of car renting before this. So much so that the owner of the Prius rental place...
Thanks for the subscribe and the like, Laurie. Wrote
wrote down my client's name and knew his number. Why is he renting cars? He can't afford a new one. He bought that horrific looking 1984, I'm sorry, I'm not a fan of the color, Monte Carlo, for a few $100. That car broke down, he bought a Nissan, put $1,500 down. These are not extravagant purchases.
Well, it's not what Luis Rivera said in his proffer. He said he bought a Nissan Altima and the Monte Carlo, and the Nissan was $5,000 cash, which for someone with no job, savings, or money is quite a lot of money. You know.
Bought a motorcycle for $600.
And he put 6 months' rent down on an apartment up front. Again, quite a lot of money.
Luis Rivera jacked those numbers up. He said 3,000. He said 2,800 and 3,800. Government had every opportunity to investigate the actual price. We have the documentation on the titles. They wanted you to believe Luis Rivera's number because it makes it seem like he spent more money. Let's go to the Prius rental. All right, Luis Rivera's testimony. Sigfredo wasn't there. How do we know he wasn't there? Because the owner says, I wrote down Sigfredo's name, because I know Sigfredo because he rents cars for me. Renting a car is not a crime, okay? What do we know? We know that that Luis Rivera rented the car. We also know that Luis Rivera had the gun. Whether he got it down here from a black guy in the hood, or if he got it from one of his cohorts in his nationwide criminal syndicate on his 9-hour drive, he had the gun. And he admits it was only his gun, that he had one gun. One gun. One gun was taken on the murder date on July 18th for the trip.
I really agree with you, Deb. I think that's why I asked the question, to see what you guys think. I'm happy with your answer, who says, I think Georgia likes the fight in the courtroom. Not sure she would be happy having to listen to everything, all the lies, without being able to speak out. Yeah. I could see that. You know, she's just a born scrapper, courtroom scrapper.
One gun. We have a hotel rental. Luis Rivera. We have a Prius in the Premier parking lot. And you have cell tower data that cannot conclusively place my client's phone in that parking lot. Now, look at the phone records. It's important. And remember Luis's testimony. He said Sigfredo had his flip top, a flip phone, a burner phone, okay, during that trip. There's an incoming text message and an incoming unanswered call between 9:30 and 9:50 in the morning. We have the Prius being out of the line of view at Premier for 6 minutes. The government wants you to believe that Luis Rivera and Sigfredo Garcia are in the car together because there's a photograph, a screenshot or a still shot of the Prius driving with a passenger that appears to be wearing a white t-shirt, right? It's July, it's summer, and I would venture to say that if you go to any basketball court in Tallahassee, half the kids on the court will be wearing white t-shirts. Wearing a white t-shirt in the summertime is like being a Knowles fan at your stadium. It's not uncommon. It's not like it was a checkered shirt or there was indications of it. If you look at the picture, it's a short sleeve shirt.
What did he say? I like learning about all these crazy sports references. What did we do yesterday? The basketball team in Miami is called the Heat. The Miami Heat. What does that mean? That it's unbearable? Unbearably sticky? What did he say? A Knowles fan. What is a Knowles fan?
say that if you go to any basketball court in Tallahassee, half the kids on the court will be wearing white T-shirts. Wearing a white T-shirt in the summertime is like being a Knowles fan at your stadium. It's not uncommon. It's not like it was a checkered shirt or there was indications of it. If you look at the picture, it's a short sleeve.
What did he say after that? Somebody tell me what this means. A Knowles fan at State. What does that mean? I've obviously misheard something.
Shirt. If you look at the picture on the camera at the bank, it's a long sleeve shirt. There's no direct evidence.
He rolled up his sleeves. Yeah. And one time he had one long sleeve and one short sleeve. So it wasn't him.
My client at the murder scene.
Seminoles, Knowles, okay.
Rivera. And I believe that we've made our position very clear.
Thanks, Harley.
Can I just get a minute, Judge?
Certainly.
I got to check out their hats. I got to get me a Seminoles hat when we're down in Tallahassee.
Okay. Gonna get back to Charlotte Nobles. I forgot about him.
I like
this young
that.
man told you on the stand that he lives in his car. Okay? And
I so got to get that hat.
I don't think it's unreasonable to believe that someone that travels and lives in their vehicle, there's nothing wrong with it, rents rooms from time to time. And I think that this person who admitted to being part of a drug deal could have been facilitating another drug deal.
He's right, you know. I live in a vehicle, and, well, I wouldn't say I rent rooms from time to time, rarely, but I did a couple of weeks ago, and it was okay. It was okay. The acoustics weren't great, you know, so, yeah, there's nothing wrong with living in a vehicle. It's pretty cheap.
Now, here's an important question. Did they prosecute him for admitting to that drug deal? No. There is a jury instruction. Oops. Oh, right. There's a jury instruction. It talks about how. Now this is still under weighing the evidence, okay? And you guys have a copy of this, and you'll be able to take it back to the jury room. You must consider the testimony of some witnesses with more caution than others. For example, a witness who claims to have helped the defendant commit a crime has been promised immunity from prosecution. Right there. I'm going to shift just back to Sergeant Nobles. He went and told cops he was involved in a drug deal, and he wasn't arrested. He assisted the prosecution while he was on probation. No probation violation, no new law violation, nothing. He got a pass because his testimony fits their story. And the jury instruction specifically tells you if someone is given immunity from prosecution, that's something you should consider in weighing their evidence. Now, are there other things to comport or to confirm what he says? No. Didn't he tell us that there was a woman in the car with him? Right? He said there was a young lady in the car with him. Someone that allegedly was at both trips, the June and the July trip. Someone that would have potentially corroborated his testimony. There are issues upon issues that I've asked you guys to consider. And things that I want you to look at, and really talk about, and think about. Because as jurors, you bring your real life experience, your knowledge, and your common sense, okay? And I know it's a lot. And I know there's a lot of pressure. There's probably no bigger duty for a juror to have to serve on a death penalty case. I get it. It's a lot. So what we're asking you is to listen to what I said and consider it and talk about it amongst each other. And ask yourselves, do I feel comfortable convicting Sigfredo Garcia of a murder based on the evidence? Based on the lack of physical evidence, based on the uncredible testimony of Luis Rivera, based on the fact that they believe the motivation came from a person that my client despised. Is it there?
Yes, I'm coming for the June trial, Harley. If nothing else, but to get my Seminoles hat. We're collecting all the sports team baseball caps in well, across America. Across America. We've already got the LA Angels, and now we're going. What have we got next? Canucks. Well, I know that's up in Canada and hockey, but they still. I really like their hat.
Beyond a reasonable doubt. To find guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, it's a very high standard. We do that because the foundation of this criminal justice system is to protect people, to make sure that when a jury of his peers makes a determination that you have such an abiding feeling of guilt that your thoughts do not waver or vacillate. That means for a second that you don't go, you know what, I don't feel comfortable with this. I don't understand why there's holes here. I don't understand why he would do this. Look at the chart and realize that if you believe that he's guilty, you strongly believe it, that's not enough. If you think it's likely that he's guilty, that's not enough. And the chart goes on and on and on. We ask you guys to listen to me because this matters. Okay? We understand it's a high-profile case. We understand that the media's been here and people are chomping to get to the innocence. I mean, clearly the government is. They spent the first 20 minutes of their opening on it and get at.
Yeah, man. Good. Looking forward to seeing you. I was so close to booking a ticket for Donna's trial. And I don't know, something in me just thought, what if this is fucking postponed? That is a long way to come, man. It's like a, what, 12-hour flight? a lot of cost. And what if the trial gets cancelled? But I don't think there's any way in hell Judge Everett is going to let anything derail this trial now. No way. So I feel extra secure in coming over all that way.
And let me tell you, rightfully so. Rightfully so. I would venture to say there's substantially more evidence against the Adelsons there than there is against Sigfredo Garcia. Substantially more. Motivation, documentation, ability, more. Much more. Yet, here we are. And here is...
Well, the way that he's saying there's more evidence against them than there is against Sigfredo, that means that there must be some evidence against Sigfredo. Otherwise, he'd say there isn't. He's just not that great, is he? Bless him.
And your task. When you review the jury instructions, take into consideration the discussions that we've had. Look at things independently. Okay? Be skeptical. Be talkative. Have discussions. Don't jump because the government says jump. Question things. That's what you're supposed to do. That's what you do in real life. Kind of like when someone says, hey, you want to kill someone for $100,000? Where's this money coming from? And like I said,
kind of like when someone says to you in real life, want to kill someone for $100,000? Where's this money coming from? I think he should have made a distinction between regular people and gangsters. The jury's like, what the fuck?
Ask the right questions. do the right thing, and I'll tell you, at the end of the day, come back with, I'm not interested in buying this house. Come back with the right verdict. Thank you guys for your attention.
All right, we're going to break for lunch. Let's try to, I want to kind of try to keep this moving. Let's try to be back at 1:30. Yeah, that's a little less than an hour. I think you ought to be able to do that. So let's be back, ready to go at 1:30. Either side, anything?
No, sir.
I guess we need to discuss your instruction.
Okay. So next up was Christopher DeCoste, but we covered that the other day. I think this is our worst thumbnail ever. Look at it. It's so bad. I just had to make it on double time, you know. But yeah. So I'm not going to show that right now. But if you want to see it, and you missed it the other day, you can head over to our channel page and check it out right there. Look, there it is, on our fantastic channel page. And I really got to look into how we scroll. There's shitloads of videos there. Most of them are Adelson content. If that's your thing, go to our channel page. Look through all of our content and find the stuff you want to see, because the chances are we've already done it more than once. And we'll probably do it again, but if you can't wait until then, go to the channel page. Subscribe to the channel. Like, share, leave a comment. I'm going to have a look at Georgia Kappelman's rebuttal, though. We're doing it all mixed up, and then I'll probably go back to, you know, her original statement. But where is her rebuttal? Fantastic rebuttal. I guess she's going to tear down some of the elements of Mr. Handgrenade's case right here that we've just listened to. The house, the Sigfredo Garcia house.
Sorry.
Georgia's come in with a wrecking ball.
Okay, well, thanks for hanging in there with us. The defense talked about there was no investigation in this case. These officers scoured the earth for that Prius. They looked at hundreds of hours of surveillance. They pulled surveillance off city buses to find evidence in this case. And they pulled that needle out of the haystack.
Good morning, Michelle DeMatteis. Good to see you. Good to see everybody. Welcome everybody in chat.
Hundreds of thousands of pages of phone records and financial records and other data was analyzed in this case. This was incredibly thorough. It took years. They drove from here to Tampa multiple times, mowed down the side of the road looking for a firearm. They got authorization to conduct 24-hour surveillance at this woman's residence and on their phones. I'm not used to being the defense.
What did she just say about Tampa? Who went to Tampa?
The defense talked about there was no investigation in this case. These officers scoured the earth for that Prius. They looked at hundreds of hours of surveillance. They pulled surveillance off city buses to find evidence in this case. And they pulled that needle out of the haystack. Hundreds of thousands of pages of phone records and financial records and other data was analyzed in this case. This was incredibly thorough. It took years. They drove from here to Tampa multiple times, mowed down the side of the road looking for a firearm. They got authorization to conduct 24-hour surveillance at this woman's residence and on their phones. I'm not used to being the defense, but I will tell you that the jury instructions that the judge has read you indicate that your feelings about the lawyer should not influence your verdict in any way. So to the extent that you think that I am this corrupt, desperate monster that Mr. DeCoste has portrayed, you must separate that from your evaluation of this case and base your verdict on the evidence in the case and the law that the...
It's okay, Georgia. We don't think you're a corrupt monster. We think you're just great.
judge has given you, and that alone, that is your oath as jurors. They have attempted to inflame you against me, to invoke your sympathy on behalf of their client who has children, who is confined in the jail. She's on trial for murder. She'll never
Tell
see
him,
her
Georgia.
kids again. You're not supposed to.
I love how Georgia's owning everything they tried to say. You know the case that we're going to be looking at tonight by popular demand, the case of Colin Griffith, who just got found not guilty of murdering his own mother. I don't even think the prosecutor gave a rebuttal argument. And I swear when I saw his closing argument, I was like, I don't know, man, you're overselling this. You are overselling this. You're really hitting home those gruesome, shocking details. And it's coming off as a song and dance rather than a clear statement of facts. That's what I thought. And then the defense, who gave the closing argument after him, obviously, really did a good job at highlighting what I just said, that he seemed to be making a song and dance. And then I haven't seen it, and I couldn't find a link, that the prosecutor even got up for a rebuttal, which is in stark contrast to the fucking balls-grabbing rebuttal that Georgia Kappelman is making here. She's openly grabbing everything they've said against her and taking back control. And that's what she does best, right? If she ever loses it, which is rare.
To let sympathy interfere with your verdict. Dan Markel will never see his kids again. And he didn't get a choice in that. She had a choice. And this trial is about her choices. Not what I did, not what Luis Rivera did. He's already been convicted. He's not on trial. These two are. To suggest that these wiretaps somehow are not evidence of Ms. Magbanua being right in the middle of this thing is just, listen to him again. Listen to him again. And if those don't put her right in the middle, then I guess you know what you have to do.
I like that as well. If those don't put her right in the middle, then I guess you know what you have to do. That's another thing, isn't it? Sometimes being non-insistent over what you require from others is the best way to convince them that your way is the right way. She's saying, if you think she's not guilty, then you're going to vote not guilty. But here's all the evidence. Look at it. And if you still think she's not guilty after that, nothing's going to convince you, because this is the proof. But you know what? She did get a mistrial. And, you know, it's that same old story I hear where it was there's two versions of the story. One was that there was a jury member with purple hair that hated the government and just wanted to go against the court, basically, go against the evidence. And the other version is that there was someone on the jury, because Sigfredo Garcia and Catherine Magbanua, the two defendants in this case, have two children in common. One member of the jury, at least, couldn't square themselves with taking both parents away from the kids. So two slightly different versions of the same thing, basically.
What possible motive would I have to prosecute an innocent person? In what universe would that assist me in getting the Adelsons? Someone requesting a trial does not mean they're innocent. Every criminal defendant has a right to a trial. She didn't flee the country, so she must be innocent. She would never risk not seeing her children. A mother wouldn't or couldn't be capable of doing something like this. Well, who would be capable of doing something like this? so heinous. Yet it happens. We all know it happens all the time. And we talked about it in jury selection. What does a murderer look like? Are they a certain race? Are they a certain creed? Are they a certain sex? No.
This is the first trial we saw Georgia. I mean, yeah, she's on televised trials before this, but in this case, obviously, the first time. So she's still kind of shaping it out, right? What we see by Charlie's trial is a very almost polished version of this. This feels fresh, doesn't it? And I like it. I love it, in fact. I mean, I just love this woman. I think she's amazingly talented. You know, I've heard some people, some fucking idiots, say on Reddit and stuff, like, no, she's not a good trial attorney. What trial were they at? The fuck? She's brilliant. Brilliant closer. Brilliant cross-examiner. You know, the direct is very good as well. She's very clear, and she's very good at taking us through the evidence that we need to see. But it's not where her big skills lie. Her special skills are in cross-exam and closing, right? She did the opening in 2019 as well. But Sarah did the opening for KD2 and Charlie. And she's also very good. And a very good cross-examiner as well. I don't think I've seen her do a close, though.
They come from all walks of life, in every shape and size. Don't excuse her conduct because of sympathy. It is unfortunate. It is sad. This is sad for everybody involved. But this is about those defendants' choices that are sitting across the room from you. Defense showed you a picture of the girls on the beach with a credit card in it. I can't see the name on that credit card. I don't understand how that means that she bought drinks that day. And I don't understand what in the heck that has to do with the murder. How did I...
Well, I saw the video on Grish's channel where he managed to, you know, it's a very low-resolution photograph that he has to work with. You can see the credit card, but any details on the credit card are too, you know, pixelated to make out. But the one thing that you can make out, and I'm pretty convinced of this, is that, you know, where you have your name on the credit card, you got the numbers and the name, raised letters on the card, usually. Well, actually, they're not anymore. Most cards now, they're just flat, aren't they? I don't like that at all. But, yeah, no, I was convinced enough to say that the first letter of the name on the credit card is a W. Not a K, not a Y, not a C, a W. Wendy was paying for those chicken sandwiches and drinks at the beach.
Or misguide you. I don't agree with the defense's characterization of how this evidence was presented, but you got the evidence, and you all will make a determination as to whether or not it's any good. You've been instructed on the defense, a couple things, defendant statements and also defendant testifying. Those were both in your packet of jury instructions, and we have one of each in this case. Defendant Garcia gave a statement to the police in which he indicated that he had never been to Tallahassee and that he knows lots of Luis Riveras. He couldn't possibly narrow it down to the one that's his best friend since childhood, the one he did a murder with in Tallahassee on July 18, 2014. This statement is obviously untruthful, as it is completely refuted by all the other evidence in the case. The evidence against Mr. Garcia is overwhelming. He shot Dan Markel, a man he didn't even know. And they want to talk about, oh, they wouldn't be so stupid as to bring Shadrick into the motel. They shot this man in broad daylight in Benton Hills. They don't care about being stupid. Why would he do it? For a few bucks, which he blew immediately? to impress and win back Ms. Magbanua, his conduct is the very definition of cold-blooded. And Defendant Magbanua chose to take the witness stand. We didn't hear very much about that.
I thought she was going to say, his conduct is the very definition of stupid.
She doesn't know anything about the crime at all, so how can she be cross-examined? She don't know nothing. Even after the bump and her involvement in investigating the man that approached Mrs. Markel, gosh, I can't talk. Even after the bump and her involvement, she was enlisted by...
And I just love how Georgia can fuck up like that. Some attorneys, a mistake like that kills them. The prosecutor in the Colin Griffith case made a couple of slips like that, and he lost his shit. You know, like it made him stumble, and he kind of had to pick himself back up. You know what I mean? Like verbally, mentally, whatever. Georgia just owns it straight away. She says, the woman, and then that she was going to investigate Mrs. Markel, and
not the crime at all. Blooded. And Defendant Magbanua chose to take the witness stand. We didn't hear very much about that. She doesn't know anything about the crime at all, so how can she be cross-examined? She don't know nothing. Even after the bump and her involvement in investigating the man that approached Mrs. Markel, gosh, I can't talk. Even after the bump and her involvement, she was enlisted by Charlie to go investigate this person that confronted his mother. Even after that, she didn't know anything about the murder. She's telling y'all she didn't even know the man was killed, period. Until Garcia got arrested. What did we learn through her testimony? We learned that Sigfredo Garcia and Luis Rivera both have reputations for violence. That fits. We learned that she lied to Charlie Adelson about sleeping with Sigfredo Garcia, and she lied to Sigfredo Garcia about the fact that she was sleeping with Charlie Adelson. She was playing them against each other. She lied to Charlie Adelson multiple times about whether she was calling that undercover number, about knowing who Tudo and Tato are. She lied to Yindra about Dan Markel being in a car accident. She lied about not knowing what a burner phone was and then later admitted to going to Walmart to get one. She lied to the IRS and filed fraudulent tax returns. She lied to DCF to scam the government for insurance while she saved up money to buy a breast augmentation. And she wants you to believe that she's telling the truth about having no knowledge about this homicide. Not being able to remember.
I love it in Katie too when Sarah Dugan's cross-examining Katie, and she's like, you got Charlie Adelson to put you on the payroll so that you could get Obamacare for one of your children with special needs. And Sarah continues to say, then there's nothing wrong with Obamacare. It's a very serious thing, and a lot of people need it. But the thing is that you were scamming Obamacare while spending thousands of dollars on a boob job. And we all pay for that, right? The American taxpayer. And Katie's answer was, yeah, but I've always wanted my breast augmentation. That was money that I'd saved up specifically for that, so I couldn't touch it to help my child with a disability.
Or virtually anything about the question she was being asked unless her lawyer put the answer in the question. She's telling the truth about having no memory as to what the conversation was between she and Charlie when he's telling her about a Latin king threatening his mother and saying her name. I would think she'd be real interested in that conversation. But she has no memory of it. You have been told this whole trial that she was...
She never does overplay it, not like this guy. I don't know his name yet, but we're going to find out in the prosecutor. I'm not a big fan. I'm withholding judgment or opinion, but from what I've seen, he so overplays it, which is why I'm bringing it up with your comment, Christina, because Georgia Cappleman never does. It's made to measure. You know, it's the perfect pint. It's the perfect pint every single time.
Was working remotely on a weekend basis for the Adelson Institute. They bent over backwards to tell us about how she was working. And she gets on the stand and says, I didn't work there. I didn't go on the weekends. I worked for Charlie as his personal assistant. Well, why is Donna stroking the checks if she's working for Charlie? She admitted that she got gifts from Charlie post-breakup, and I said, you know, we went through all the gifts, and some of them, they say were loans and whatever. She got stuff from him, and she was not dating him anymore. Why? And I asked her, why are you so special? Well, I know why she's so special. Because she's got Charlie. She's got him, and he has to keep her happy. That's why she gets that stuff.
I'm just thinking about Daniel Rashbaum, who, when prepping for Charlie's defense, which he was probably doing before he was even arrested, right? He must have been listening to stuff like this and going, yeah, she's getting a lot of stuff. Maybe we can say it was an extortion.
That's why he called her to investigate the bump, because they're involved in this thing together.
But I think what Daniel Rashbaum's problem is that he had to work so hard to try and force any possible excuse. You know, he had to jam whatever he could. He had to jam a triangle-shaped bunch of stuff through a square hole or whatever, you know what I mean? He just jam it in as hard as you can, work so hard to try and make it fit, and in doing so, in working that hard, changed the restraints of logic in his own view, and then convinced the Adelsons that it worked. But then they came to court and it didn't work at all for anyone. Katie was always broke, and the extortion never went up. I wanted to keep her happy. I said, was T behind what happened to me? I've still got to make that clip show. How many times? He says it like 85 times in that testimony. Some variation of the few words, what happened to me. He never refers to it as by the thing. It's just this suggestive thing. Was T behind what happened to me? Major red flag.
There was a $100,000 reward for information leading to an arrest on the unsolved murder of Dan Markel. Do you think this woman wouldn't have turned that number in a heartbeat and collected that reward if she didn't have anything to do with it? Believe it. She also admitted that she was speaking in code on the wire and has no good reason for that. Why was she speaking in code? There's only one reason to speak in code. I mean, I'm really not trying to be cute. There is not a reason to speak in code when you're giving somebody a phone number. And then
what does she mean by that? There's no reason to be cute. I'm not trying to be cute. What does that mean?
$1,000 reward for information leading to an arrest on the unsolved murder of Dan Markel. Do you think this woman wouldn't have turned that number in a heartbeat and collected that reward if she didn't have anything to do with it? Believe it. She also admitted that she was speaking in code on the wire and has no good reason for that. Why was she speaking in code? There's only one reason to speak in code. I mean, I'm really not trying to be cute. There is not a reason to speak in code when you're giving somebody a phone number. And then I would offer you the following question and answer. Question, did you talk to Luis Rivera on the day of the money drop? Answer, yes. So that kind of implies there was a money drop. Luis Rivera didn't say Got 8 minutes. I'm sorry, you guys. All right. Luis Rivera. There's this idea out there that
I'll keep track of time, Miss Norris.
Oh, she's not right. Is it less than 8 minutes?
No, you have 12.
Okay, thank you. I'll only take 8. All right, so Luis Rivera, the idea is that he did not say Catherine Magbanowa's name in the initial meetings, and somehow he was told, you're not going to get a deal unless you say her name. This is just not true. Nobody has testified to that. The lawyer saying it does not make it true. We talked about his inconsistencies, and we talked about inconsistencies at jury selection. If Mr. Rivera is smart enough to memorize this whole case, I can't even keep it straight.
Hey, riding shotgun, does that make you a rabbit in the Chinese zodiac?
And regurgitate it on command to you, then why doesn't he remember which trip he got the ticket on? You know, there are natural inconsistencies in his testimony. The man has a 6th grade education and reads on a 3rd grade level. And they want you to believe he understood the evidence well enough to falsify the testimony to get all these little intricate things correct. I mean, the reason why you believe him is not because he's some great guy. He's the worst. He's a killer. You believe him because he's telling you what you already know. He's telling you what the rest of the evidence in the case supports and tells you. He's not studying the evidence and building his lies within that framework. They actually said he's a smart guy. The guy misspelled his own name on the witness stand. Lius. The man rented a
Lius.
car in his own name to come do a murder. Can't compare him to Jeffrey Lacoste, who is a professor. If he was going to lie to cut a deal, and if I'm so desperate to get the Adelsons, as
it's just gone 9 o'clock in Sydney. Welcome back, Nola Vine.
They claim, why didn't I just tell him, or have someone tell him, to say the Adelsons hired him? And if the Adelsons actually hired him, as Mr. Garcia wants you to believe, as Mr. DeCoste wants you to believe, then why didn't he just flip on the Adelsons? He's flipping on his best friend from childhood and his best friend's wife. Why would he do that? If he was actually hired by Charlie Adelson, he would tell us that.
That's what I said earlier, and it's absolutely true. If you're going to just make something up, why send down your best friend and his wife?
Think about whether the inconsistencies that have been cited by the defense are truly inconsistent. Use caution in distinguishing between nitpicking versus an inconsistency that's going to constitute a reasonable doubt. Is the statement truly inconsistent, or is it a routine situation where the witness is failing to recall every detail? Does the witness appear to be fabricating his testimony?
If you're born in January 63, I think you're a rabbit. And I only ask because I'm a rabbit.
These are questions only you can answer when trying to evaluate any inconsistencies that were present in the witness's testimony in this case. And I would submit that saying things like Wendy in one statement and the lady with the kids in another is not a close call. Those statements are not inconsistent. When he got the speeding ticket, whether the picture of Dan Markel was black and white or color, all things that we don't really care about. And it's up to you. Why? If he was not hired by Garcia, would he be giving up Garcia? It doesn't make any sense. The defense says Garcia would never do this job for Charlie Adelson. Well, that may be true, but you'd be surprised how much people would set aside for the right amount of money. He also would do anything for Catherine Magbanowa, and she was the one asking. And thirdly, I'm not sure he knew he was doing it for Charlie Adelson, because he told Rivera they were there for Wendy. His understanding, Rivera's understanding, which he got from Garcia, is that they were there for Wendy, to help Wendy get her kids back, not for Charlie. Wendy's the sister, but I don't know. He was pretty mad in that phone call, I think, when he found out that Charlie was in the picture. The Wendy sighting. Okay, so the evidence was that it is possible that they saw Wendy on the sidewalk based on the phone stuff. Yes, the kids went to daycare that day. Could she have gotten him out of daycare? It's possible. But I think what's more likely, I never heard him say that the woman he saw walked into the house. So y'all have to rely on your own memories. I thought he said he saw her on the sidewalk near the house and she walked up the sidewalk toward Dan Markel.
We went through this apparent sighting of Wendy and the kids. Luis Rivera and Sigfredo Garcia are parked outside watching Dan Markel's house, and Luis said that he saw Wendy and that he spoke about it with Sigfredo. We've decided at True Crime Metrix that it was not Wendy. It was a friend of Dan Markel and Wendy, who were also Jewish, lived in the neighborhood, had 2 kids, and possibly the mother was walking with her kids to the house to visit Dan. He wasn't in, and they turned away. That's what we think at True Crime Metrix. If anyone else doesn't agree, let us know in the comments.
House, like in that direction. So you've got these 2 guys driving around Benton Hills. They're sticking out like sore thumbs. They're high as kites. They're trying to basically do a murder, so they're probably paranoid. And they see a woman and a couple kids on the sidewalk. Garcia says to Rivera, "Oh, that's her. That's the lady." And what Rivera said is that when Katie called to tell them, y'all got to get this done tomorrow, that they said, "We saw Wendy," or "We saw the lady with the kids." So that was my memory of the evidence. You guys rely on your own. Well, I have no reason to doubt that they saw somebody on the sidewalk. I cannot tell you that it was Wendy.
Yeah, you see, so stop trying to get all the attention. You're trying to get likes on the stream by whining in my ear, yes? I can hear you even through my noise-cancelling headphones. Did anyone miss Soap's wolf howl last night? She did a full wolf howl on stream. And she's only done that maybe 3 or 4 times in her whole life. What was up with you, Soap? What was up with Soap? Hello. Speak to your public. Speak to your public.
Wendy Adelson. I do not have that evidence. They have tried and tried to draw these links between, Rivera and some other Latin king coming up here, or Charlie dealing directly with Sigfredo Garcia in the absence of Ms. Magbanua, but there's just no evidence of it. And you have to base your verdict on evidence. I mean, that's in the jury instructions. I'm not making it up. They have gotten creative and trying to, do the deep sea fishing thing, and you guys can take that back there and read the whole thing and make your own mind up. All right, it's a race. All right, so I want to talk just for a moment at the very end here about the shape of this conspiracy. It's like a train. They can be a cluster. They can be like spokes of a wheel. But in this case, there really kind of appears that each of these people are isolated from the other one. Donna's only connection to the conspiracy is Charlie. Charlie's connection is, goes down the line like that. You can't get from the engine to the caboose without going through the middle. And the middle is Catherine Magbanua. Why did she pay for Garcia's lawyer? Not because the lawyer did anything wrong. I'm not throwing shade at him. She paid for another co-conspirator's attorney. That's relevant for your consideration and to whether or not...
Well, that's all right, riding shotgun. You know what they say, 67 is the new 21.
This is a conspiracy. Just, all I want you to do is listen to The Wire again if you have any doubts about these two's guilt in this thing. Just because Catherine Magbanua didn't come to Tallahassee or pull the trigger herself does not mean that she is not just as guilty as the ones who did. She hired Garcia, who in turn hired Rivera.
68. Hang on, 1957. Whatever it is.
And she's the conduit between Dan Markel and the man that put a bullet in his head. Without her, none of this happens. Without her, we're not sitting here today. I'm concerned that you'll get back there and say, well, she didn't pull the trigger, and we'll just do conspiracy and solicitation. Consider all of the offenses and the evidence and whether it's proven beyond a reasonable doubt. Do not let concerns about sentencing or ramifications sympathies, other things like that bleed into your deliberations. Catherine Magdanowa is just as guilty as Sigfredo Garcia in this phase of the trial where y'all are considering guilt for first-degree murder. The efforts to distract you from what this case is really about, including trying to make all these other links. Think about Rivera, but also, why do we believe Rivera? Because of the financial evidence, the wiretap, the phone activity, the iCloud messages, and the absence of any other reasonable explanation should all lead you to one conclusion. That image that I have, will you pull that out, please?
You know, when we listen to how good the evidence is in this case, it just frustrates me even more that that we're still doing it. Wendy's still not arrested. We've decided that we don't even need her to prosecute Dana. We had a look at all her we certainly had a close... Soap! We're almost done, okay? And then we'll go to the river and you can fish. Oh yeah, there are sirens. They're coming for you, Soap. You'll be in cuffs. What was I saying? Yeah, Wendy's testimony basically did nothing. Basically did nothing at all. I think it's an experiment for Georgia so that she can get the measure of Wendy, right? It's like the interrogation that there never was, right? Because her first interrogation was pretty botched. Pretty botched. You know, we've covered her interrogation 3 times, the whole thing on this channel, and I think we're going to do it again. But not today, because today we're doing Colin Griffith. Everybody come back later. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, remember to subscribe. We're doing Colin Griffith. And then we'll come back to some Adelson stuff. We'll mix it up a bit. It's going to be good.
This is the full picture. Not bits and pieces, the full picture. This is the clean window. Rivera was all in for this job. This was his best friend, whether it was a robbery or a murder or whatever. He would have been the shooter. It just didn't happen that way. Maybe not in front of the kids, but certainly he would have been the shooter. Rivera is not on trial, as I mentioned. He has been convicted of this crime. And yes, I do hope that every single person who has any culpability in the death of Dan Markel will be held accountable. Today, y'all are going to decide about these 2. Does Rivera have a network of criminals he could call?
Riding shotgun blew her car speaker out with Deep Purple. When you were 21 or recently? Or both?
Yes, but there's no evidence that he did that in this case. Reasonable doubt is not a mere possible doubt, a speculative, imaginary, or forced doubt. There is no evidence that Charlie Adelson was buying drugs from Lewis.
Deb H. Hopefully it's going to be reasonably early. I'm aiming for 7, I think we said yesterday, EST, to come back for Colin Griffith. But I have trouble committing because I haven't really been to sleep. I had about an hour and then I was too cold to stay in bed, so I had to get up. So yeah, I feel fine now. I'm aiming for 7, and I'll try and put up the confirmation link as soon as possible. Are you on Discord, Deb H? Because I always put it on there, or the social networks, or obviously you get the YouTube notifications as well. If you've got the bell turned on, everybody needs to turn on the bell for the notifications on YouTube.
Rivera. The defense says it's not outside the realm of possibility. Well, of course not. Very few things are. But that's not what we deal in a court of law. This is reasonable doubt. It's not speculative. It's not possible. When you consider the big picture of this case, often the simplest explanation is the right one. You can have 15 different explanations for what happened to this man, 15 different explanations for the different pieces of evidence in this case. Oh, that spike of cash in July, well, I was working in the clubs and I had the best month of my life in the club and I can't remember anybody I was working with.
I can't remember what happened in 2015.
So you can explain away everything. And if it's one thing, then you can be very successful. Because, okay, I was working in the clubs. But when you start to look at everything else, what about the wire? What about everything else? You have to look at the whole totality of the evidence in this case. And when you do that, you are going to come back to what this case is really about. Dan Markel. Justice for Dan Markel. And there is only one verdict that speaks the truth in this case.
Hey, she just said a hashtag, justice for Dan Markel.
And it does justice in this case, and that is a verdict of guilty as charged for both defendants. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Georgia. She just never fails to impress me. How many times do I need to watch this woman? I never get bored of anything she does at all. I always come out of it feeling like I can take over the world. Okay. Little short morning stream. I better go and take the dog to the river. And I'm going to the post office today as well to pick up a package from Vancouver Island. How great is that? I've been the last 3 days. It's so funny because the post office here is really small, and when I tell them that I'm looking for a package and I say, oh, it's from California or it's from Vancouver, they all come running out like it's a big deal. like you know, they're all looking through the drawer, like 4 people looking through the same drawer. They get really like excited about it. It's funny, you know? But it's this really, really quiet post office, you know. So, yeah, looking forward to picking that up. Get some sleep. I'm wide awake though. Gonna have some more coffee. Hey, yeah, Laurie. Yeah, come to Discord, Laurie. Link in the description. And, yeah, no, Discord's great. We all hang out. Anyone not on Discord should be on Discord. And, yeah, or social networks, you know. All the links are in the description for the video for more true crime Metrix stuff, okay? Okay, well, thank you so much, guys, for being here on this early morning stream. Little quiet, but we are... It's probably the worst time slot of the entire day. 3 in the morning Eastern until, what is it now? 5:15? That has got to be the worst. And riding shotgun, go back to bed. Okay, we will say good afternoon or good morning and catch you later. Okay, don't be an Adelson. Try and be nice, try and be kind, don't be greedy, don't, you know, have respect for people. You know, they're all just as important as you. Okay. Good night, guys.